Boot thinks he's the most handsome person on the broadcast. I don't know where that's come from, mate. You gotta relax. Nevertheless, though, right, we got a huge day. Big games, right? The players have already been playing today. You know, there's already a sort of level of expectation of what these guys can come out and do. And it's about replicating that, right? Sure, you were great. You made top 50 in the last round. Can you come out and get top 8 in this one?
Yeah, and the last round was so different for a lot of players as well, right? One less hour, a few less games than they're used to. It felt like it was impossible to play some of these games. You needed everything to go perfect, or you just basically went home. So after that grueling process, just finally surviving, getting a breath of fresh air, I'm wondering how things switch up here, because Levin, you know, in these rounds going all the way for the finals, it's a very different atmosphere entirely. Plus, every player might be at a new drop because someone else didn't qualify. It's very, very different to the regular game we usually see played in any Cash Cup or different type of Fortnite.
Yeah, the ability to adapt is key. And like you mentioned, there are players who will be switching up drop spots from what they're accustomed to. But nevertheless, if you're making that decision, you have to be confident in your ability to execute that well. You know, a lot of these players have similar ideas and ideologies on how to play the game. It's about the execution, right? Who's actually going to go out and do it in these high pressure moments? And as we saw in the last round, it isn't easy whatsoever when you have all these players really at their best looking to compete for the same goal. You know, you have to be able to do something that separates you. And that won't be easy for a lot of the people in the lobby. But again, right, you know, this is your chance to show that you can do it.
No, absolutely. Like, one big thing too in terms of expectations, predictions for both of us. I mean, I think we can count it down from 3, 2, 1 and, you know, do it together. 1, 2, 3, boom. You know what I'm saying? All right, you went the wrong way. It's all good. We fused together to go for Thomas and Tayson. The desk talked about it a bit. You can highlight it a little bit. Why do you like Tayson so much, Levin? Why is it always all in for him?
I'll be real with you. This season so far, Tayson Thomas hasn't been the most impressive for them so far, right? Questions about their work ethic, questions about whether they are still two of the best players in the region. But the problem is with these guys is that they have Fortnite mastered, right? When it comes to the fundamentals of the game, they have that down to a T. And then when it comes to just being able to adapt to new metas, it's like this for them, man. It gets so easy. Anytime we're having a conversation about who are the best players in the game, their names will always come up. They've done really well in previous competitions, you know, running up to this one in the past week or so. And so I have no doubt in my mind that they're going to be able to come out when the pressure is highest, when players around them are all wobbly and shaky, and really step up.
Absolutely, and we've been watching teams throughout the whole last 12 months of Fortnite, even past that, even more. Now it's all about teammates, that synergy, just being dynamic and adapting to a lot of things happening. You know, you can get punished a little bit more inside the entire duels format. You're not gonna have the extra body to protect yourself when things go wrong, or to amplify and capitalize on any plays you wanna make. That's a big difference too. But with that being said, games are almost underway in just a second. The big thing too, 50 different entities on the map, so many more things to worry about for a lot of players. A brand new map too, Levin, entirely. There's so much to expect for this FNCS.
Yeah, look, big adjustments, right? Big adjustments, a whole new map. If you haven't watched any Fortnite for a while, don't worry, we will get you through it, right? Explain everything to you, give you the whole rundown. I think the biggest thing, right, is going into end games, the fundamentals, who actually has those great dynamics. I think that's why Tayson and Thomas will always be big favorites, because the combinations between the two, beautiful, beautiful textbook stuff. And everybody has to try get to that level or something there and thereabouts. So I'll be real, I'm super excited to see what plays out today.
Yeah, momentum still coming in. Joe and Vino first overall from that previous round. So many different players who just had, you know, maybe different meetings and different types of entire environments around them game to game. Now it's all the same players in the same game, and that game is about to start. It's game number 1 of EU in the first qual. Almost there in just a second. 6 total as well that'll be there too. I mean, Levin, it's just, it's nuts, right? Because when you of Fortnite, when it comes to just elite level lobbies, right, the top 100, 6 games, it feels like a lot. They dwindle down really fast.
Yeah, you know, especially when, you know, considering the fact that we're playing for top 8, you know, you've got to have a couple games. Yeah, maybe you can allow yourself 1 or 2 games where things don't necessarily work out. But for the most part, you have to be on it game to game, and you have to be able to adapt game to game, of course, right? There are always going to be these small tweaks that you have to make. You can see here on your screen, team's going to be dropping there, right? How do you go game to game in terms of what areas you claim, how you cut off other teams? There are all these little micro things that will play into how the story develops over the course of the 6 games. And ultimately, things are in your hand as a player. You know, you can't leave things at the end of it and go, oh, I got unlucky here, I got unlucky there. You have to make your own destiny in that sense.
Yeah, and the destinies formed by relationships, and when you look at relationships between teams, it's my favorite part of the FNCS, the beef, Levin. The beef. I love the off-spawn combat. I love, just the stories throughout the season, and I feel like, Boop and Reese touched on it a little bit with Zeke too. Covert Cavern overall, that's where things are about to get super heated. Launch pads, guaranteed to have no problems for your entire game, available over there, but 3 God Squads ready to go there too.
Yeah, and I think the dynamics between the way those fights play out will just be so mesmerizing all day long. Because, like you said, sometimes you get teams contesting at these big spots, but oftentimes you get a clear and obvious sort of distinction between the teams, right? You got a tier 1 team there, tier 2 team, a team that's sort of in the middle between them. All the teams that are landing Covert today are teams who you could see winning the whole thing today if things were to go well.
Absolutely, and there's different tiers before what happens between, a desk towards the game starting. Right now, we'll throw it back to the desk. I got a little bit more to talk about before we get into that first game.
Appreciate you, Shy Wager, and of course, Levin2K. We're about to jump into game 1, but apparently people weren't ready. They didn't catch the battle bus. Things happen. It's okay. We're going to run this back. We're going to make sure everyone's accounted for on that battle bus, and then we're going to start off the competition. Great stuff, though. And I do like that these guys are kind of talking about the duos, the strategies to kind of prepare. So, let's kind of talk about the new mechanics here as we're kind of warming up the bus. How much of this new loophole, these new mechanics and games, you guys think will kind of play a factor? I think, Reese, you recently made a video on, sliding, for example, right? And if you just kind of, looked at it at a glance, you'd be like, sliding, okay, it's, the same as walking, ? But it's not exactly, is it, Reese?
No, so sliding is a mechanic that I thought was going to be more utilized, and I think now is still completely underutilized when it comes to fighting specifically. So right now, if you start sliding down a slope, you're going to get increased movement speed. If you slide on flat ground, by the way, no increased movement speed. It just looks cool. That's about the height of it.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it can throw people off. But what I really was hoping for, though, was that people would end up using it in fights. They'd find good ways to phase into boxes like I have. By the way, if you just slide and shoot a wall at the exact right time, you're going to phase straight into that person's box. Not seen it happen yet. If you come off of a launch pad, slide when you land, spray through someone's wall, you can go straight into their box. If someone does this, by the way, in a tournament, tag me on Twitter, because I've yet to see it in the 2 months this season's been out, and I said it when it came out. I was like, someone do this play, hit off a launch pad, slide, spray into someone's box, and pick up an elim.
I mean, there's Reese trying to farm Twitter followers again, but let's move on from that. I mean, I think sliding was... I think we all thought it was going to bring up the mechanical level of play even higher. I mean, there's a few people that have been practicing it, Vidil being one of them. He's been in the creative lobby, trying to crank it out. Seti, also one of those guys that have been, putting in the hours, as a main top of last trios, now in duos as well. He's been putting in the... If you want to see that, then you should focus on those guys. But, I don't think it's had the impact that we thought it would have. But it's a pretty cool mechanic, and I'm excited to see how, you can sort of cut off people on mid-ground and low-ground with that mechanic now.
I think yet.
Yes.
Yet. There's still time.
That's the
one
keyword.
Of those things, but it's like...
Someone's going to figure it out.
Someone will figure out how to use it in fights, how to throw people off, because at the start of chapter 1, when people building editing, people were like me and Zeke now, right? We're at that level, and then when the time has passed, people have gotten sufficiently better. Obviously, thing is a new mechanic. This chapter and this season just starting. Over this chapter, I think we're going to see an evolution that people get extremely proficient with it.
Yeah, I think that especially kind of you're saying, right, with Chapter 3 Season 1 hitting, there's a brand new map that you kind of have to, forget everything from previous, Chapter 2, right? You have to just kind of wipe that away from your memory and say, I have to learn all of these new areas, these new POIs, these new rotational patterns, where people can be, loot chests, all this new stuff, right? So I think we haven't seen sliding quite yet come online, but I do have faith, right? I do think once one person does it, kind of to your point, Reese, everyone else will see it and go, oh, yeah, sorry about that. I was trying to really learn my drop spot and make sure that I didn't lose here, but I'm going to start doing that at my drop spot, and then I definitely won't lose. We'll see. We'll have to see. Now, really quickly, I just wanted to touch on the prize pool here in Chapter 3, Season 1. Now, remember, this is the prize pool going into finals, so 2 weeks from now. Take a look at this prize pool out of Europe. $1.3 million. Just rounded up to 1.4. I don't know why. NA East, Brazil, NA West, Asia, Middle East, OCE. This is a global competition, boys, and this is a lot of prize money here in Europe.
Yeah, it's a lot of moolah, a lot of dosh getting
So much.
dashed out. And obviously, remember, this is just specifically for the final. So right now, the top 8 teams that qualify through will get to play for this prize pool in the finals. That's what we're looking at once we eventually get these these queuing issues sorted and we're into game. That is what you're going to be looking at in the leaderboards. The top 8 will get to play for this in 2 weeks' time.
Yep, and that is definitely what you want to do, because the new semi-final system and the heat system is so tough to get through. I mean, that is a lot of money just to be playing for, and you don't want to risk it playing the heat system, because it's a little bit RNG for you, so you got to be careful.
Yeah, placing in that top 8, right? Like, if you can start just this first qualifier and hit that top 8 and just guarantee that you're going to finals, you're at least, like, locking in some amount of prize money, right? You're going to get some amount for just going to finals, and then you have to start thinking about strategies and how you can aim for that top spot. Now, of course, as I like to talk about a lot, you don't even need to win, right? Just coming in, like, top 5, you're going to see a massive jump in prize money, and that's going to get you a brand new PC, a brand new car, a brand new chair, lots of brand new things, all the snacks you could ever desire. I mean, there's a lot to play for. Now, guys, I want to toss to this real quick. Let's talk about a brand new POI that came back recently. Was recently defrosted. You know, it's Tilted Towers. Have you guys heard of Tilted Towers, Reese?
Never. This is a new POI to me. I've never heard of this place. Sick POI, honestly. Like, center map, it has I think the highest amount of chests total, so 57 chests in here, 198 floor spawns, tons of slurp barrels. Basically, it's everything you need. One of the most important parts of it is there's 20 safes, which is kind of crazy, but I mean, most of the time there's not as big of a utilization for gold unless you're going to Greasy, but 32 produce boxes. This is what's really important, so you can always get a ton of peppers. Because there's just so much loot, like, teams are usually able to split this pretty well. Like, we're seeing Kinzel Siptos go here alongside Benji and Mr. Savage, who unfortunately haven't managed to make it here today, so we'll have to see who ends up qualifying through. From just quickly looking at the map, it seems to be Resac Liam, which obviously I'm a big fan of. Appears to be going there and look at the drop map, so great POI.
I mean, it's a little bit of a tough spot, though, to play out, especially when you have this many people landing in there. I mean, it's so open. You're sort of dived in within that spot. It's a big horde. It's basically very similar to Daily Bugle, I would say. There's a lot of POIs nearby. There's people that can third-party it for free. And you just got to be a little bit careful. So I'm expecting a lot of these guys to be splitting Tilted a lot of the time. You have so much loot, like Reese mentioned, that you don't need to be fighting. I mean, that's what I'm saying every single time. Everyone should just split the spot. We should have 99 people surge. Oh, sorry, 100 people surge. And then my heart will be happy.
I mean, that would be cool. That would be sick. But I think you nailed on a really important point there, was the fact that people can rotate in early, right? There's like the loot lake up above it, which has a ton of teams land there. Right now, it seems like we've got 3 teams, and there's the 7 outpost that's up to the northeast that has the rifts in it. I think Stena and Raid are landing there. So if they're smart, they can loot that quickly. They can rotate through to the hills that are on the outside and just get some really easy sturge tags. Just bang, bang, bang on all the players. The 3 teams who seem to be landing in Tilted right now.
Yeah, super enticing POI. I just avoid it, man. For me, it's too high skill. I will just absolutely get bodied. It's not even competition. I'm just a walking 50 pot. I just don't even go there. I do like the big change that we have seen from Chapter 3 Season 1 is that there's a lot more map space available, right? We kind of saw this in Chapter 2. A lot more trios at that time felt like they had to go to these named POIs, right? If they really wanted to secure a proper split, they had to kind of make these higher risk, high reward plays. But with this new map, it's way more open. There's a lot of these little houses, these little loot paths all around the map where you can just land and you can just say, like, okay, I know this, like, this is us right here. And at minimum, I know I can open a handful of chests, and then we can start kind of coming up with a plan with what's next. Is there any that you guys have that are like, you think might be slept on? Maybe you're like, yo, this one place is real good.
I mean, obviously, firstly, the Cami split that we mentioned earlier,
Sure.
in the Puddle Pond, right in the center of the map. That spot is absolutely fantastic. Funnily enough, it's difficult to name exactly where these are because they're split, right? They cover such a huge amount of area. But one team who's been doing really well in a split is Lucia and Fury. Has been doing really well in the 7 outpost. It's just the southwest of Greasy Grove. They managed, I think it was like 3rd or 4th in the previous rounds, just doing super well out of there. Frey's team's actually contesting them right now. So these kind of 7 outposts that have the rifts, that have the vault, if you can manage to get a couple other chests from some of the surrounding areas, you can definitely get yourself a good enough loot pool. Usually you'll need around like 7 chests per person, and you can definitely manage to do that in a ton of the looting path, mainly because it's duos, not necessarily just because of the map on itself as well.
Yeah, and the one that I think is slept on a lot is Jones's. I mean, there's not that many good teams that land there, but there are a decent amount of cooler boxes there. You do have those you know, it's pretty small loot. You know, you have a very quick area to rotate past. You can loot it very, very quickly, rotate away for it. You can even get a piece of the south side near Condo Canyon. There's so much potential there for activity. But, you know, you have Kiko and Marsh right there, again, Mixon and Rakshus in this final. So it's going to be spicy, but I think Kiko and Marsh, they've been doing super, super well. You know, the guys from Portugal, very, very underrated. They've been slept on.
Hallo? Meine Herz. Ja, verhaften will ich auch.
Das ist so ein schlechter Spieler.
Hallo? Nimm mal an,
Ach
wenn
komm,
du...
Marshmallow, ist klar.
Hallo? Nimm mal an, wenn die
Ich will
Louis...
noch gewinnen, wenn ich erst neu dazugekommen bin.
Nimm mal an.
Trotzdem von Anfang 9 eliminieren. Digga, was soll ich denn da machen, wenn man einen scheiß Boogie-Bomber gibt? Auch unfair.
Nimm mal an, wenn Louis...
Spieler ever. Was? Was soll ich machen?
Gute Handlung. Deine Ehre!
Er hat mich doch gar nicht getroffen. Willst du mich verarschen? Einfach kein... Einer Box ist. Was soll ich da machen?
Deutsch? Ja, ich.
Was ein Erstklässler du bist.
Überall sterben.
Oh,
Ach, komm.
muss da jemand weinen?
Ja, komm.
Oh, ein Opfer gefickt. Man dachte,
War bester Spieler ever. Aber nicht. Verarschen.
Hey, du kleiner Hurensohn.
Ich zumachen kann er mich nicht treffen, Digga. Ja, komm. Ist gut. Kann doch gut.
Kleine Fotzensohn. Kleiner Fotzensohn. Du kleiner Fotzensohn. Oh, du Fotzensohn, kannst doch reden. Einfach ein Fotzensohn. Ah, bist du ein Fotzensohn?
Ja.
Oh, dann muss man jetzt die letzte Mikrofon mitgenommen. Ja, bist du dieser Anonym?
Warum?
Ja. und nutzt du
Welcher
oder was?
Skin hast du?
Wie viel Arena-Punkt hast du?
Was?
Wie viel Arena-Punkt? Ben? Ben,
Was für ein Skin nochmal?
heißt du zufällig Ben?
Nein.
Bist du nicht... Kennst du vielleicht einen Ben?
Nein.
Du bist doch dieser Ben Luis, oder?
Nein. Bin Sonic Clubby.
Du kennst doch einen Mika, oder?
Ja.
Wirklich?
Ja.
Oh, wir kennen uns im Real Life. Kennst du mich noch? Ben von der Schule.
Ja. Welcher Skin bist du?
Ben, wie alt bist du denn?
Bist du auch?
Ja.
Eben hab ich dich gekillt.
Oh, bist du wirklich dieser Ben?
Nein, ich bin Sonic Clubby. Dieser Braune.
Aber du kennst einen Mika, oder?
Ja.
Kennst du einen Ben?
Ja.
Und wie alt sind deine Mika und Ben?
Was?
Wie alt sind sie?
Guck, das bin ich, der wo
Du bist ja
gerade hoch.
der Echte. Du bist ja Real Talk der Echte. Wir sind wirklich 8. Wie heißt dein Vater?
Stefan. Der wird damit klatschen.
Kennst du wirklich einen Mika?
Ja.
Und wie alt bist du?
12.
Ja, dann bist du nicht der Ben.
Ich hab dich gleich. Bam, bam.
Bist du ein Mädchen?
Ja.
Genau, wahrscheinlich. Wer bist du dann? Was ist für dich? Du bist Sonic Lobby, oder?
Ja.
Okay. Ladest du mich ein?
Ja, ich lade dich ein.
Ey, Bro. Aber du bist doch eigentlich 8, gibst du.
Nein, ich bin 12. Hab Du hast gewonnen.
저거 전에 누가 했지?
Hallo?